cultists.
Yes,
Bro.
yes, sir.
Heavenist cultists.
Yes, sir.
What is that one?
I know the conversation will always begin from there.
Once you have written it, you should begin from that.
Anyway, heavenist cultist, simply put, is somebody who is in touch with the heavens.
Okay.
And when you talk about cultist, simply means a worshipper.
Okay.
So it's not like a society that you have to go and join in order to be a member, but it's a title given to me as a poet, JUNO, because most of my poems are either spiritual or related to love, and love is about life, and life is spirit, right? And quite often too, I do get revelations about our elections, not only in Ghana, but also sometimes America, and I capture them, right? So I think I started having the revelations on our elections 2008. And each one that is given to me, the way I write it, that's how it happens. And so I think the first one that I wrote that came to pass exactly the way I wrote it. And I share with friends and this thing, I go to media houses, I have interview and all those things. And before the election even happens, I go for interview. And they ask me, I explain, and then it happens. So not to even go far, this 2024 election, I wrote it, and my brother will bear witness with me. It happened the way I wrote it. So where are you getting this inspiration from? It has to be somewhere. And the only person that I know in my life is God, right? And our leader as Christians is who? The shepherd himself. And so saying I'm the heavenly cultist is in that dimension, not the other way where the word cultist has been abused. So, people relatively think otherwise, but no, far from that.
Alrighty. Lord the poet, you also receive revelations?
Well, I don't receive revelations like the way he does, but truth is, every poetic piece is something that is divine. So with me, one of the prayers that I prayed, or that I constantly pray, is that every work that I do must transcend time. And so if I write now and I don't even understand, after 5 years, after 10 years, it would be relevant, it would make a lot of sense. And so that is the thing that I said, oh God, you know what? As simple as this poem might be today, or as complicated as it might seem, after 5 years, it should make sense. Because when you look at the big men, or the Einsteins and the, I just want to use some of these big people, the Teslas. You see, what they did and the vision that they had to create what they were creating, as at then, didn't make a lot of sense. People thought they were into something else. And now we are like, oh, okay, what you did has not benefited us. Now we have electricity, now we have this, now we have that. And that's the beauty of literature. It tells of a time that we once were. And so when the people in the future have your works, they should be able to tell of the past and what was happening and what is present. And as poets, one thing I believe is God has made his prophets poets and his poets prophets. And so when I speak today, you should be able to tell of the past. And if I speak now, you should be able to tell of the future. And so if you would have to go back and look at the ancient writings of the Egyptians on the walls, okay, it was done in the past. But now we are looking at it and we are like, oh, okay, now this one tells us the things that once were, the things that once were. You get it? When you look at the characters that they used to communicate, I mean, they were not using A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, but you can see birds, you can see stuff, you can see this, and it tells you the things that once were and the things that they used. And one thing about the poets or the writers or literature is that when they do, it makes you understand that, okay, at a time like this, it was the Iron Age, it was the Stone Age, and it is all captured in literature.
I see. Context, African literature. We'll get into some freestyles very soon. But,
we should be, I can't wait for the freestyle. Revelation mixed with the literature and all of that.
Yes.
But we're Christians. Thank God we're Christians. Let's get into the church now. Before now, we seldom would hear about poets, people who, I mean, there were recitals, don't raise in the post and that kind of thing. But now we see some people come off as poets and comedians and all of that, just to preaching the gospel in different lights. Do you think that that's actually another way to go, or you think it's not sustainable, we might lose it over time, and then the preaching will still be dominant, or yeah?
You know, poetry in itself has been with us since from the beginning, because if you go back to the word, it says in the beginning was the word, spoken word, right? So literature itself is the creative writings of a society, a group of people, or a culture, right? We now know the nature of God to some extent because of the written word, right? But before then it was spoken. So poetry is something that has been with man ever since. And if you go back to Genesis, right? When I say Genesis, I'm talking about the Pentateuch, right? The Old Testament, right? They were quoting the poets. So remember when Moses went to war with some of the enemies of Israel, right? In Numbers, they quoted. They said, "This is what the poet have written. They have said." So back then, and even Paul, right? He also went to Antioch, Greek, and he quoted their poets in order to make sense.
Yeah.
Today, poet has been quoted, and pastors are quoting poets only if your work is divinely inspired and it's relative to whatever they are preaching.
Right.
So it is a continuation of what was done, which is also being done now. And now people think that poetry is only meant for the elites, but they are like linguists. They capture inspiration, and inspirations are always from within, right? And so what comes from within can either be inspired by God or otherwise, right? But if you're a Christian, all your works are inspired by God. And once they are inspired by God, as you're a Christian, that the Spirit, bear witness within you that this poem is relative to what you are going through. And then you can easily read the poem and be elevated back again, right? So there's another ministry that most people don't talk about it, which is the poetic ministry. Because if you look at the Bible itself, look at the percentage of the Bible itself that is in poem, the book of Job and all those. So it's a whole ministry on its own. So there's a poetic ministry.
And it's not just going to be a phase, it's something that we must continue.
It continues, depending on who is inspired to do that. So God is using his poet to continue the work of the ancient poets. Because if you look at it, the Bible itself, in a way, was written by poets. Look at the Song of Solomon. That's poetic vibes right there. Right.
I see, interesting. How are we documenting this? People document it. Of course, African literature is said to be just oral. And so you find your works not in books. Where are you putting them? Or they're in books? No, both of you now. No, not, I'm referring to the poets we have now.
Yes, from now.
Generation, this is our generation.
It's interesting, but they are in books. So back in the day, the writings were done on papyrus. Okay, back in the day, the writings were done on the walls. Things have changed. Things are evolving. Now, the books, people are now still writing and putting it on paper. And now others are also putting it on digital.
Yes, where are you putting yours?
Others are on Amazon.
Right.
And you realize that it's not just about the writing. Sometimes, because it is oral now, it is recorded.
Right.
Now, just like the music and it's being on Spotify and all of that, on Audio Mac, and yes, some now me, my brother, and some many poets that I know, you can now go play their poetry and listen. Yes.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
Yes.
So is it
I just wanted to build it so people would understand.
No, that we understand
Yes.
that.
It's their poets, they build things.
Yes. So I just wanted us to get in there before we get in freestyle, because we don't have enough time. So where can we find your works? Yes.
Instagram, Facebook,
Okay.
and then I also have an of poems, which is, and I have a book called The 7 Articles of the Poet. You go to, online, you just type my name, JUNO MAMACITA, the HEAVENIST CULTIST.
Yeah,
my works will pop out.
Are you cashing out?
I should say we're okay.
Okay.
Yes.
You
Cash
cashing out?
out? No.
Okay.
I mean, let's be truthful. We are not getting the attention that we need.
Right.
And I think some of us have really worked hard.
Okay.
And now most of these young poets are cashing out actually on YouTube. It's sad that, I mean, some of our digital platforms down here don't pay much because of the region that we are in Africa. But I mean, if you change your VPN and you go to UK and all of that, if people play, then you get paid.
Yes.
You know, like TikToks and all of that.
Okay.
And yes, it's out there, but compared to the other forms of the literature, I mean, music and all of that, poets are not paid, are not getting the revenue that they must compared to the other ones.
I see. Interesting. Well, okay, let's get into some freestyle now. JUNO MAMACITA. Charlie, take it away. What are you doing for us?
Well, such a lovely day, and I've got something to say, which could have been said on the month May, but on this very stage, not any enclosed bay. I, JUNO MAMACITA, stand to distinguish myself from fake. This speech you are hearing is not talking about corruption, yet all get a fair cut of the cake. Pop out the champagne drink, let it flow like a lake, and lend me your ears as I begin to pray. Oh good Lord, so many Africans have gone astray. The system killing us and groom us as prey, waiting to be victimized, brutalized, and be slain. But I give you the future's account and its date. What I want to say is actually this, and it goes to all my sweethearts. When I say all my sweethearts, relatively I'm talking about people that I know that follow me and do this.
Okay.
When I talk about you, they think I am insane. But you have a beautiful soul, so sweet like sugar cane. You are the perfect example of a well-cultured lady, so cool and tame. It couldn't be a coincidence that you love Sitem. Beautiful lady who treats me like a baby, no shaky. I will give you pleasure without a measure. You are my treasure, and when I talk about you, they think I'm giving you exposure. Beautiful Empress, the way you